Hi everyone, this is Cloudbird, and in this video I will be giving you a tutorial on how to make a pose mod for Skyrim SE, so Skyrim Special Edition. So to begin, there are several things that you will need to have. So first you should download animation tools, which I will provide a download link for, and you'll also want to download the example text file for FNIS pose text file, which I will also provide a link for. And then you'll need to have downloaded and installed FNIS and Poser Hotkeys. And if you use Mod Organizer 2 like me, you will want to create a executable for generate FNIS for modders through FNIS, and then the Poser Data Gen exe from Poser Hotkeys. And those can both be found on Nexus. So generate FNIS for modders is installed with FNIS behavior, and Poser Data Gen for Poser Hotkeys is also included with Poser Hotkeys. So there's where you'll find those. So the first thing that you'll want to do is when you download the animation tools, you'll want to drag the content folder out of the archive to a place where you can easily access it. I have it here on my desktop for ease of use, but you could also put it in a program folder or wherever would be best for you. So when you open the folder, you'll see several things here, but all we're really focusing on is this female blend file. Oh, I guess I should also mention that you should have Blender 2.8 or above installed. I should have mentioned that before for this. So you would be working, these are basically rigs, so using these projects is how you will shape your character pose. This is the male version and this is the female version, and in this tutorial we'll be dealing with the female version. So just double click it to open it. So when you open the Blender file, this is what you'll see, and if you've never used Blender before, it may be a bit confusing to look at something like this, but I promise it's really simple and you're really not going to use a lot of this stuff. So what you are going to want to do to get yourself properly set up is, if you look right down here, it'll say start and end. Start is 0 and end is 1, and you want end to be 2, because technically a pose is actually an animation, right? So the start and the end is how long the animation, or in our case the pose, is, and animations in Skyrim usually don't like to be odd numbers. That's why, so instead of playing for 1 second, we put it on 2. So you'll see this is just going to keep playing and playing, looping over and over again, but it's never going to change because it's just, we're just putting it into a single static pose. So after you do that, you can use the middle mouse key to turn the character, and if you hold down Alt and move the middle key around, you can pan to different directions, and if you hold down Shift, you can pan the camera like that. So to make your pose, first of all, you're going to want to be absolutely sure that this blue line is on 0. And when you're in order to make the pose, you want to use these gizmos here. So these different color, different shaped gizmo types of things. This is called the rig of this shape here. So if I right click on one of these shapes, it will allow me to edit that gizmo. So if I right click on the wrist gizmo, for example, if I hit G and move my mouse around, that's just going to move it around freely. If I hit GX, that'll move it along the X-axis, GY, the Y-axis, GZ, the Z-axis. And I can also hit R to rotate it freely, or I can use RY, RX, and RZ. And if you don't really want to do any of those like hotkey types of things, use this arrow here. There's a toolbar. If you use transform, if you hit transform, you can use these rotating and moving icons like arrows and circles and stuff. So basically that is how, and also I guess I should say to undo something is Control Z, of course. And say you're moving something around and you want to cancel the movement, just right click. So that's kind of just a little bit of Blender 101, like how to move things around. So you're just going to be moving all of these gizmos in different ways, rotating all that stuff, you know, just until you get whatever pose you want to make. So I'm going to stop here and come back when I have a pose made and ready for exporting. Okay, so by moving the gizmos around for a while and kind of just doing a lot of editing, I have come up with this Jacko pose that I want to now export and implement into Skyrim. So once your pose is done, all you need to do, if you expand this area, you'll see down here it says export animation. This is actually a text area that has this long script in it for exporting the animation out of Blender. So all you want to do is hit this play button right here and give it a second. And then by default for animation tools, your exported animation will appear in this convert folder right here, and it'll always be called default pose. So the next step that you'll want to do is you'll need to run your animation through Cathedral Assets Optimizer to get it converted for Skyrim use. So my Cathedral Assets Optimizer is in this folder here. So all you need to do to use Cathedral Assets Optimizer, once you have it installed, is make sure that the directory is right to that convert folder, and just hit run, and that's it. And then you'll see successfully optimized, so you know it worked. So after that's done, you can go into here and just pull your pose out to somewhere where it's easily accessible and name it something. So I'm going to name mine Cloud A01. So the next thing you'll want to do is create a new mod in your mod organizer or whatever mod organizer you're using. So for this I made a mod that I named Cloud Basic Poses, and all you'll need for a pose mod is a meshes folder and an SKSE folder. The meshes folder is where you will put the animations, the FNIS text file, and the behavior file, and the SKSE folder is where the Poser Hotkeys information would go. So the first step is to make a file path that goes meshes, actors, character, animations, and then your custom pose mod would, and in this case mine is Cloud Basic Poses. So this is where you will drag your pose into. This is the folder where it'll go. And this is also where you'll put this FNIS list text file. So mine says FNIS Cloud Basic Poses list, but yours will say whatever the name of your custom pose mod is. So when you open up this text file, it should look exactly like this. So there's a lot going on here. There's a lot that you can do with writing this text file, but for the purposes of this tutorial on making just basic regular poses that aren't animated and don't have objects or anything, all you need to worry about is typing these these 4 letters, I guess, like that, and then the name of your pose, and and then the name of your pose again, .hkx. So, for example, let's say like, it may be easier if you're just to replace the names here. Like if you named your pose like pose 1, you could just type pose 1 and then pose 1.hkx, right? So you wouldn't even need to worry about like deleting anything. And then when you make more poses for your pose pack, like let's say you make like pose 2, pose 3, pose 4, you can just copy and paste this and just change this to pose 2, you know. So that's all you need to do for this this text file, right? So I'm just gonna X out of that and not save the changes because mine is set up the way that I need it to be. So after you have your text file, your FNIS text file set up, you'll want to run generate FNIS for modders. Now what this program does is it generates a behavior text or a behavior file based on the FNIS text file that you made, and you'll need to include this generated behavior file in your pose mod. So once you've run this, just hit generate mod behavior and navigate to your text FNIS text list that you just made and hit open, and it says that the behavior was successfully created. And when you do that, if you use MO2 like me, it'll be in the override folder in data, meshes, actors, character, behaviors. So this is what we just generated with generate FNIS for modders. Just pull that out to somewhere where you can easily reach it. Open up your pose mod and make a file path that says meshes, actors, character, and not animations but behaviors, and drop it right in there. So that's all you need to do for that. And then the last step here, other than just finishing up at the end, is creating the Poser Hotkeys plugin, which is really simple. So you'll just go into your Poser data gen that you linked to MO2 before when you installed Poser Hotkeys. Select none, select your pose mod, because it'll say it here. Just hit generate poser data, and it says that it generated the poser data. So all we gotta do now is this will be in overwrite, SKSE, plugins, Poser Hotkeys, poser data, cloud basic poses, or whatever the name of your pose mod is, drag that out, and then go back into your mod and make a file path that goes SKSE, plugins, Poser Hotkeys, poser data, cloud basic poses, or whatever yours is called, right into there. So, and that's pretty much it. All you need to do after this is run FNIS or run Nemesis, and I'm assuming if you're watching this tutorial you know how to do that. And the only other consideration is that when you're making pose mods like this, if you want to add more poses, you're going to have to, every time you make more poses, you're going to have to individually add them to the FNIS text file, regenerate the behavior, and regenerate the Poser Hotkeys plugin, and then run FNIS or Nemesis all over again every time. So, but the good news is if you go into game and you're seeing issues with your poses, like your pose, like maybe the hand or the foot like isn't quite in the position that you want it to be, as long as you still have this Blender file open, you can always go in here, or Alt Tab out of game, don't quit out of game, just Alt Tab out. You can go back in here, make the fixes, re-export your animation, name it this, or you'll have to run it through Cathedral Assets Optimizer again after you re-export it, and then rename it the same way, replace the file, and then you can go back in game and reload the pose without exiting game. So that's good news. And then what I also would highly recommend doing when you're doing this is save each pose as you're making it as a separate Blender project. Like I have this saved as Cloud A2. Because you'll want to, if you want to always have the ability to like edit the poses you made, you'll want to save them as separate Blender files. But when you're doing this, make sure that they're saved in this exact folder, like right where the female and the male rigs are. Like you'll want to make sure this is in the same folder, or else when you try to export it, it won't work because it's not in the right folder. And that should be it for this tutorial. Feel free to message me on Discord at Cloudbird if you have any questions related to this topic, and thank you very much for watching.